And look, I'll be really honest, the BAFTA Film Awards is so stuck up its own arse. I mean, it is so serious. When you see people on the red carpet pouting, and it is so self-serious.
There's a thing I had seen in my research before seeing Show Pony, which then you make much of in the final sections of Show Pony, which is your performance at what was it? Was it the Film and Television Awards for BAFTA?
It was the BAFTA Film Awards.
BAFTA Film Awards, which is a fascinating artifact which people can watch on YouTube, in which you don't have a particularly good gig, and it was. Watching it again, having seen the material about it, I was so happy because it's so fun. Like, I'm so pleased for you that you managed to turn a tough gig into some very, very funny material. And that's something I think all audiences love to watch. Hey, here's a thing I once did. Oh, I stacked it. And here's the shots on stage of like, this is what the audience's faces looked like at this. I won't say more than that. But and you talk about why, and you talk about why, the reasons behind the choices that you were forced into, sort of effectively,
which is true, by the way.
Yeah,
that
sure,
is true. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
You're never going to believe anything I say.
It's all true.
Yeah.
You really can. Anyway, so of course it's true, and of course I understand the desire to do it, even though the goalposts move at the last minute and all of those sorts of things. But I was fascinated because I've never seen Mr. Swallow go anything less than brilliantly. And also, you mentioned earlier on that, like, part of this is part of the joy of watching it the second time was also knowing that you were fine, getting to enjoy my friend having a struggly gig and going, they're not liking this. And it's not the worst death in the world. You definitely get some laughs, but clearly it's not the impact that you're used to making.
Quite.
You also said earlier on today that no one could mistake Mr. Swallow for a real person. And yet part of what happens there is a lot of people seem to be taking what you're saying at face value.
Yes,
so I just kind of, without spoiling anything from your show, I just wondered about the feeling of like the moment in your heart when you're like, oh, they're not going for this, and the decisions made made thereafter.
Look, we've all had tough gigs, but I mean, it was so surreal. Like it was just so surreal. First of all, of course, I would always say yes to any kind of opportunity like that, even if I pretty much knew it was not going to, just for the stories, let alone being able to get material out of it. But just to have experienced it, felt like it was like a character building, fun thing to do. But I was so aware of it going bad, like from within seconds into it, I knew that this is never gonna take off, and I'm on stage for 3 minutes, which is a long time for doing anything where it's not going great guns. And it's funny you say about people maybe not knowing it's a character, because I think that is possibly true with America, because I remember showing like David. Sounds like such a name drop, but Schwimmer, some Ted Lasso stuff. Yeah, from Friends. Some like Ted Lasso stuff. Before Ted Lasso came out, I was like, oh, look, this is it, this is me. And I was like, I'm doing a character in it, I'm doing a voice. And I was kind of like, like doing it like that or whatever. And he was like, really? Is that a voice? And I'm like, he didn't hear any distinction between my voice and that.
Oh my God.
And then when I was announcing,
this suddenly makes it more clear the English accent in the series Friends that crops up. Yes, so I get that now.
Well, maybe it does actually, yeah. But then I remember then also when I did like an Instagram post about moving some tour dates, which was actually because of Traitors, which has since been announced and been done and shot it. Because I was doing it at Swallow, I very tongue-in-cheek was sort of reading off a thing which had the Believe sign-off. So people thought it was to do with Ted Lasso Season 4, which had not been announced, but I knew it was going to be announced quite soon. And and loads of American outlets picked up on it, including the equivalent of GMTV. They were playing the clip. They were constantly referring to me as Nick Mohammed. They didn't acknowledge for 1 second that I was kind of sort of talking a little bit like, that I was. They just said, "Oh, Nick Mohammed has said this thing on his Instagram," and it's like, and maybe they did know as a character and decided not to say, but I think that there is probably a slight sense of, look, I mean, the character's obviously not widely known in the States, of course not. But yeah, maybe they just don't see the distinction as much as I feel like I do, and I think I'm right to make that distinction. I hope. So
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So when I'm loving the idea of an American seeing you come in with a banana, going, "What is this?" and going, "Oh, he's very upbeat."
But like, they think that I sort of should be, I don't know, sort of taken off somewhere, and like, I don't know. Ah, man. So when I did the BAFTAs, I think that it was a bit of that, but also just such a gear shift, like such a gear shift. I mean, honestly, it wasn't. Who do I reference in the show? Emma Watson. It wasn't Emma. Whoever it was. Someone had just genuinely made a really, really impassioned speech about something really serious, and then like David Tennant was like, "Please welcome Mr. Swan," and I sort of skated. So it was like the biggest like shift in everyone's sort of perspective. So God knows why anyone expected it to kind of land from the off. Yeah. And the thing is about Swallow is that the character does, I don't do small sets of Swallow ever, because there's no point. The minimum I would do is like 20-25 minutes, because you just need to sit with this character for at least 2-3 minutes to just be like, oh, okay, now I kind of get the base joke of the character maybe. Mm-hmm. And obviously it was, and I knew it was going to be such a short bit, sort of on and off, so there wasn't really time to sort of ingratiate myself. But oh my goodness, but I could just see them all. I could see Ryan Gosling and all. I could just see them all there, and it was just, I did find it funny. I found it funny. I mean, Did you find like, because the question I wanted to ask is about your like, you're so positive, you're so you work so hard, you've got great work ethic, you're very talented, you're very skilled. I'm interested in whether there are kind of, obviously this is the Comedian's Comedian podcast, I want to know about the pain and the darker moments. Okay, of self-reflection. Well, look, so the emotional journey of it was like, obviously nerves, went on and did it, felt it had gone bad, but was like, oh fuck, what, am I allowed to swear? I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Anyway, thought it had gone bad, but my wife was in the audience, and I kind of came back and sat next to her, and she was like, oh, it went really well, but I was like, oh, I know that maybe you're lying. And then, because there was an hour delay, I think, before it went out on telly, so I watched the rest of the awards, and then my phone starts like buzzing with loads of comedians saying, oh my God, Swallow's on the BAFTAs, and them going nuts for it, and me thinking, oh great, brilliant, and thinking it was really well loved, but actually it wasn't well loved. It was well loved by comics who were really glad to see Swallow at the BAFTAs because it's so mad. And then the next day, then all the bad press came out about it. Oh my God. So it was just this like roller coaster. And I was filming a film at the time, and like I was just like, well, at least I've got this as a distraction, because it was the kind of thing. And it was that one, it was the only time when my family were like, oh, Nicholas, have we seen these? And they're really bad at dealing with that kind of stuff anyway. As in they're quite... bless them, they're quite tactless with it as well. Like they're like, yeah, you got 2 stars in this, you got 3 stars, and they just sort of sum it up really quickly. And I'm like, oh wow, I didn't I didn't want to know, or I didn't want to know like this, or I didn't, I don't like the idea of you knowing that, and then you telling me like, it was just, it's a complicated relationship, all that stuff. And so I don't know, it was, but then I was like, the tiny bit of me thought, oh God, a casting director is going to see that in America and think, let's never hire this guy, let's not do that. And there was a tiny part of me when I had spoken to some people in the States and said, should I do it, or do you think it might be a bit of a bad one? And they had said, just be careful, because they referenced, I can't remember, there was someone at the Golden Globes that year who was a comic who usually does really well, had not done that well. And but I was like, well, I'm not saying anything distasteful. In the end, I just thought, it's like I've pranked them. And look, I'll be really honest, the BAFTA Film Awards is so stuck up its own arse. I mean, it is so serious. When you see people on the red carpet pouting, and it is so self-serious. I'm not saying for a second that, like, people need to be kind of more in tune with Swallow, like, because if people can be serious and be passionate about whatever they're doing, but it is so, everyone is like rewarded for being more serious in that, and it's so sanctimonious. It's so sanctimonious, and of course people are doing their best work, but it is so, I mean, it's like, oh come on, like, just don't take yourselves that seriously. Just kind of have whether you're going to go for Swallow or not, just have a bit of a sense of humour about yourself. Anyway, so I'd sort of, the more I kind of thought, afterwards, I was like, I'm really proud that I did that and that I didn't compromise on who Swallow was by being there.
Yeah.
I just sort of did it. It went really bad, but of course it was going to go bad, and just own it. And actually now I've been able to make material out of it. So it feels like it's sort of come full circle a little bit.